I stepped out of the elevator in the high-rise building where I live, still gripping my phone tightly, my eyes glued to the screen displaying the shooting schedule for the new film project. Another long day in Los Angeles, the city I've called home for the past 10 years. I am Connor Wells, 39 years old, CEO of Wells Studios. Today I just finished a meeting with the production team, and my mind is still buzzing with ideas about the action scenes in the Mojave Desert. Suddenly a voice called my name from behind, soft but clear in the quiet hallway of the Beverly Heights penthouse area. Connor? Connor Wells? I turned around, a bit surprised. It was Mrs. Mildred Saunders, my elderly neighbor who lives on the same floor as me. She was over 70 with her silver-white hair neatly bunched up and pale blue eyes behind thick glasses. She had been widowed for a long time, living alone with her old cat named Whiskers. A lazy cat that she often said was her only companion who never disappointed her. Since I moved here a few years ago, we've only exchanged polite greetings a few times because my schedule is too busy. I usually leave home at the crack of dawn and return late at night, sometimes going on business trips for weeks. Mrs. Mildred, on the other hand, often sits by the window, observing everything around her like a silent gatekeeper of the building. I stopped, smiled politely, and put my phone in my pocket. "Hello, Mrs. Mildred. How are you? How's Whiskers today?" I asked a few questions, trying to keep my tone friendly even though my mind was still on the shooting schedule. She looked around the hallway as if afraid someone might be eavesdropping, then stepped closer, clutching her small handbag tightly. This penthouse area was usually peaceful, with bright white walls and glossy wooden floors, but at that moment the atmosphere suddenly felt heavier. She lowered her voice, trembling a bit, perhaps due to her age or because of what she was about to say. "Connor, can you spare a few minutes for me? I have something I need to tell you." My heart skipped a beat for some reason. I nodded and led her to a less trafficked corner of the hallway. Mrs. Mildred began to speak, her voice low but clear, as if recounting a great secret. "Lately, I've often seen a young man coming in and out of your apartment, especially when you're on business trips or leave early. At first, I thought it was you because of the tall stature and dark hair, but the more I looked closely, the more I realized it wasn't. He's younger, and the way he moves is completely different from you." I froze, the smile on my lips fading away. A young man coming in and out of my apartment? I tried to stay calm, but in my mind, questions started piling up. "Haley, my wife, she's home alone when I'm away. We just got married a few months ago, a simple but happy wedding in Malibu." Mrs. Mildred continued, her voice getting even quieter, as if afraid the walls had ears. "And Haley, your wife, when she opens the door for him, they laugh and talk, hugging and kissing very affectionately. I've seen it a few times now, Connor. I'm not being nosy, but my window looks straight across to yours and I couldn't help but notice. They seem very intimate." Her words hit me like a punch straight to the chest. I stood still, saying nothing, just feeling the blood rushing to my ears, my heart pounding loudly. Hugging and kissing affectionately? Haley and a strange man? It couldn't be. Haley is the woman I love, the one who shares my dreams, the one who cried with joy when I proposed. We've built this life together. The luxurious penthouse, evenings with glasses of wine, plans for the future. I've never thought she could betray me. But now Mrs. Mildred's words were like a seed of doubt planted in my heart. She placed her hand on my shoulder, her thin, trembling hand. "You should pay a little attention, Connor. I don't want to worry you, but in this life, sometimes the things we trust the most are the ones we should doubt the most." I thanked her, my voice hoarse, then turned away, my steps heavy as if weighted down with lead. I opened the apartment door and the vanilla scent from the scented candles Haley often lit wafted through the air. "You're home," her voice rang out from the living room, warm and cheerful. I hung my coat on the rack, silently observing. Haley was sitting on the sofa, her long hair cascading down, wearing a simple white dress that highlighted her tanned skin. She flashed a radiant smile when she saw me. "I was just thinking about you. How was the meeting today?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I glanced around the house once. Everything in the room was tidy as usual. The dining table set with 2 glasses of wine, the abstract painting I bought from the gallery hanging on the wall, and our little dog Bella curled up by the window. But something made me uneasy. I walked over and hugged her, feeling the familiar warmth, but in my mind, the image of the strange man Mrs. Mildred had described kept lingering. I tried to smile, keeping my voice normal. It was fine. The new project is progressing well. How about you? How was your day? Haley replied gently, confidently, without showing any sign of worry. I was rehearsing the script for my upcoming role. The audition is next week. I think I'll do great. We sat down on the sofa and the tension began to spread, even though on the surface everything seemed normal. I took a sip of wine, the bitter taste spreading, but it didn't ease my restlessness. I asked a few more questions about her work, about her friends in the acting world. Haley answered smoothly, telling me about a meeting with a famous director, her eyes sparkling as she talked about the opportunity. I listened, but my mind was preparing for the big question. After a few moments of silence, the atmosphere grew heavier, like an invisible veil enveloping us. I set down my wine glass and looked straight into her eyes. Haley, I just ran into Mrs. Mildred in the hallway. She told me she saw a strange man coming in and out of our place when I was away. I want to know, who is that person? Haley paused slightly, her eyes blinking quickly, then she burst into laughter, her voice light as a breeze. Oh goodness, Mrs. Mildred. She's getting old. Her eyesight must be poor. That was just my colleague, darling. His name is Mark. He came over to discuss the script for the new film. We needed to rehearse lines urgently, so I invited him home. It's nothing, really. She gently stepped closer, placing her hand on my shoulder, her warm fingers stroking it. You've been working too hard, Connor. Don't become so suspicious. I love you, you know that? She smiled, that familiar smile that had melted my heart so many times before. But this time it didn't work. I listened without interrupting, my eyes following her every movement, the way she tilted her head, the way her hand lightly squeezed my shoulder as if trying to reassure me. In my mind, questions piled up. Mark. What colleague? I've never heard the name. And why at home? Why not meet at a coffee shop or the studio? Haley changed the subject quickly, like a professional actress who knows how to steer the script. Tell me about the film meeting. What's interesting about the new project? Do you think I'd be suitable for the supporting role? She laughed again, standing up to pour more wine for me, her movements graceful, as if wanting to erase the atmosphere of doubt entirely. The red wine swirled under the light, and she sat close beside me, her head resting on my shoulder. Don't worry anymore, okay? Mrs. Mildred has quite the imagination. Last time, she even thought her cat had wandered into our place. I sipped my lips, the wine tasting more bitter than usual, but in my mind, a fog of doubt hadn't lifted. I nodded, pretending to agree. Yeah, maybe I'm overthinking it, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. Her reaction was too perfect, too smooth, like a rehearsed scene. I remembered the evenings before when we lay together and she whispered about her dream of becoming a star. I'll do anything to succeed, Connor. Anything. At the time, I thought it was motivation. Now it sounded like a warning. After dinner, we sat watching a movie on Netflix, a romantic one that Haley had chosen. She hugged me, her head resting on my chest, but I felt distant. I thought about Mrs. Mildred, about what she said. They hugged and kissed affectionately. It wasn't just discussing a script. I wanted to shout, to confront her directly, but I held back. Not yet. I needed evidence, not just hearsay. In the days that followed, I didn't say anything more. I maintained a calm demeanor, as if that confrontation had been nothing more than a passing breeze. In the mornings, I woke up early, kissed Haley goodbye, went to work at Wells Studios, attended meetings, reviewed scripts, and came home on time. On the surface, everything remained the same. The cozy dinners, the hugs before bed, the trivial stories about each other's days. But inside, the suspicion quietly grew like a shadow creeping into every corner of my soul. Every time I saw Haley smile, I wondered, who is this smile for? Every time she touched me, I felt a chill, as if there was an invisible barrier between us. I started losing sleep, lying awake beside her, listening to her steady breathing and wondering if she was dreaming about that other man. A few days later, the opportunity arose. Haley announced that she had to go out to a networking event in Hollywood Hills, a party hosted by major producers. "I'll be back a bit late, darling. Don't worry." She kissed me and left, her familiar perfume lingering faintly. I waited until I heard the elevator ding, then closed the door, my heart pounding. This was the moment. I had already bought some small cameras, the discreet hidden type that I ordered online. They were as tiny as shirt buttons connected to an app on my phone. I installed them quietly and carefully. One in the living room facing the front door, one in the kitchen where we often talked, and one in the bedroom hidden behind the wall-hanging painting. My hands trembled slightly as I connected them, as if I were committing an unforgivable sin. But suspicion had driven me to this point. I needed to know the truth, even if it shattered my heart. When Haley came home late that night, I was sitting watching TV, pretending to relax. She walked in, her cheeks flushed from the party drinks, smiling brightly. "The party was so much fun, honey. I met some important people." I hugged her, inhaling her scent, but my mind was on the cameras, silently recording. In the first few days, everything seemed normal. The footage reviews showed nothing unusual in the apartment. No strange man appeared. What I saw on the cameras was just images of Haley. Her sitting on the sofa reading scripts, pencil scratching out notes on paper, calling friends, her laughter echoing, rehearsing lines in front of the mirror. Her expressions changing fluidly like a professional actress, then going to bed on time, wrapping the blanket around herself. I watched and rewatched, zooming in on every detail, but there was nothing abnormal worth noting. I told myself that maybe Mrs. Mildred was mistaken, maybe Mark really was just a colleague, but deep down I knew the suspicion was still there like a smoldering fire. Then Haley started a new habit and everything changed. She went out more frequently, becoming unusually busy. Before, her schedule only had a few auditions per week, but now it was so packed that I couldn't verify it all. "I have a meeting with my agent this afternoon. I have to go to a party on Sunset Boulevard. I'm rehearsing with the team until late." She said it quickly, her voice natural. But I noticed the changes. Later calls, constant incoming messages, and her coming home looking tired but satisfied. When she was out, the apartment felt empty, and I sat there imagining all sorts of things. Who was she meeting? What was she doing? Was it with that co-star named Mark? One evening when she came home late, nearly midnight, I was sitting in the living room pretending to read a book. The key jingled in the lock, then Haley stepped in, her bag slung over her shoulder, her hair slightly disheveled. "Sorry, honey, the rehearsal went longer than expected," she said, her voice tired but still sweet. I set the book down and smiled, gently asking a few questions. "What project has been keeping you so busy lately? Do you need any help? I could introduce you to some people in the industry if you need." Haley replied quickly, her voice even and natural, as if she had prepared it. "Oh, it's just a new role, honey. I'm auditioning for an independent film. The team is really enthusiastic." "No need, I can handle it myself." She smiled, stepping closer to kiss my cheek. I nodded and asked a few more. "Tell me about the role. What are you playing?" But Haley deftly changed the subject, accusing me of being suspicious. "You're overthinking again." "I'm really busy, don't worry. You're working too much yourself. Get some rest." Then she turned and went to the bedroom, leaving me sitting there with an even thicker fog of doubt. The suspicion grew larger, like a monster awakening. One afternoon, when Haley went to meet the team, I came home early and checked her wardrobe. There was nothing unusual except for a new scarf with a faint whiff of men's cologne. My heart raced. I sat there, hands trembling, wondering, what is this? Evidence? or just my over-suspicion leading to paranoia? After a few weeks with no progress, I decided I had to go further. I couldn't live forever in this obsession, without evidence, just full of imagination. One drizzly afternoon, rare in Los Angeles, I sat in my office, the glass window overlooking the gray city, and called an old friend, a lawyer who had once helped me in a film copyright lawsuit. "I need a reliable private investigator," I whispered over the phone, my voice trembling. He introduced me to Mr. Frank Harlan, a veteran detective with over 20 years of experience, specializing in tracking infidelity and fraud. I met him at a small coffee shop in Burbank where no one would recognize me. Mr. Frank was a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, sharp eyes behind dark glasses. "Mr. Wells, I understand. I'll follow your wife, record everything. But you have to prepare yourself. The truth can sometimes be more painful than imagination." I hired him immediately, paying a large advance, and provided Haley's schedule. "I need to know who she meets, what she does, every detail," I said, my hand gripping the coffee cup tightly. Mr. Frank nodded, not asking much. "I'll report weekly. Keep things normal at home." As I left the shop, my heart was pounding. I felt guilty, spying on my own wife like a criminal, but the obsession had gone beyond limits. I needed the truth to end this nightmare. The first week passed slowly, full of anticipation. Every evening I came home, hugged Haley, had dinner, watched movies together, but my mind was out there somewhere with Mr. Frank. Haley was still busy, going out frequently, but she seemed happier, as if suspecting nothing. "I got a new role, honey. I'm about to become famous." She laughed, her eyes sparkling. I smiled back, but inside it stung. At the end of the week, the first report arrived via encrypted email. I opened it in my study, door locked tight, heart racing. The file only recorded Haley's private meetings with a few media figures. A coffee with her agent, a meeting with a young director at a small studio, and a few visits to casting offices. Nothing unusual. No strange man. Mr. Frank wrote, "No clear signs of infidelity yet. Continuing surveillance." By the second week, everything changed. One morning, while I was in the office reviewing the script for Echoes of Betrayal, a film that now felt like a prophecy about my life, my phone buzzed. An email from Mr. Frank. "New report. You should look closely." I locked the office door, opened the file, and the world around me collapsed. The first series of photos. Haley sitting at a downtown coffee shop, laughing and talking with a man. His face was clear in the sunlight. Jared Wells, my brother. Jared, 33 years old, currently working in insurance, a calculating person. He had a strange charm, with a seductive smile, a warm voice, and communication skills that made anyone trust him. But I knew better than anyone. Jared was good at manipulating others' emotions, always calculating every step to exploit. I was stunned, my hands trembling as I scrolled. The next photo, they were sitting close together, Haley's hand lightly touching Jared's, their eyes locked meaningfully. Then photos of them leaving the shop, hugging goodbye, not a social hug but affectionate, like lovers. All the suspicions in my head were resolved. The strange man Mrs. Mildred had seen coming in and out of my apartment turned out to be my own brother. Jared, the one I had once loved, protected since childhood. How could this be? We grew up together, though different. I was the eldest, serious, successful. Jared was the youngest, spoiled but always jealous. I remembered the times he borrowed money from me, the arguments about work. But betrayal like this, with my wife, the report was even more detailed. Mr. Frank had recorded a few conversations via hidden microphone. They discussed assets, shares, and inheritance rights. "My parents are old. My brother is busy. We need to act fast," Jared whispered. Haley replied, "I know, but be careful. Connor is very suspicious." My heart felt like it stopped. Based on the notes and indirect evidence, calls to inheritance lawyers, online searches about wills, Mr. Frank concluded, Haley and Jared were plotting to seize all the assets by harming me and my parents. Perhaps an accident, perhaps poisoning. He wasn't sure, but the evidence pointed to a conspiracy. I read the file, a feeling of shock and chill spreading throughout my body. This was no longer vague suspicion, but a real plot, orchestrated by the two people I trusted the most. Jared, my brother, blood relative. Haley, my wife, the one I loved passionately. Were they plotting to kill me? To seize the entire legacy I had spent my life building? After reading the entire detective's file, I sat there, leaning back in the leather chair, my eyes staring fixedly at the white wall. The office atmosphere suddenly felt stifling, as if the walls were closing in on me. I needed time to digest, to reminisce about the past, the pieces that now appeared clearer than ever, explaining why everything had led to this point. Childhood memories flooded back like an old faded film, hazy but full of emotions, making my heart tighten. I clearly remember the childhood days in the small house on the outskirts of Los Angeles where my parents, Mr. John and Mrs. Gemma Wells, built their life from scratch. My father was an entrepreneur, starting from the garage with small business ideas, then gradually expanding into an insurance company that later Jared inherited a part of. My mother was a teacher, always strict with studies and discipline. With me, the firstborn, they raised me in the harshest way. "You have to be strong, independent," my father often said, his voice stern when he made me get up at 5 a.m. to run or study. If I fell off my bike, my father would tell me to get up on my own. If I got bad grades, my mother made me study until late at night. I grew up in that strictness, learning to endure, to strive. That's why I left home at 18, fending for myself in Hollywood, starting as a production assistant and then building my own film studio. I'm proud of that, but deep down I know it left scars, a feeling of lacking unconditional love. As for Jared, my younger brother, born 6 years after me, everything was completely different. From a young age, he was often sick, asthma, allergies, prolonged fevers that made my parents worry to the point of losing sleep and appetite. Our youngest son is frail. We have to take good care of him, my mother often said, hugging Jared to her chest, lulling him to sleep with fairy tales. My father bought him one toy after another, books and more, as long as Jared was happy. He was pampered and spoiled to the point where I sometimes envied him secretly. When Jared fell, my mother ran to pick him up. When he cried, my father comforted him with candy. I remember one time Jared and I were playing ball in the yard. He tripped and cried loudly. My mother rushed out, scolding me, "Connor, why didn't you watch your brother carefully?" Meanwhile, even though my hand was bleeding from falling earlier, I was just told, "You're a boy, tough it out." That contrasting upbringing was etched deeply into our memories like two parallel tracks that never meet. It was that difference that made us two brothers so vastly different as adults. I, Connor, with the strictness from childhood, became resilient, focused on my career. I built Wells Studios from nothing, producing blockbuster films, earning millions of dollars, and establishing a reputation in Hollywood. I live by principles calmly and always try to help the family, sending money to my parents, introducing jobs to Jared. As for Jared, spoiled from childhood, he grew up to be a calculating man but lacking responsibility. He works in insurance, inheriting a part from our father's old company, but mainly relies on family connections to survive. Jared is good at communicating, has a strange charm with a seductive smile and sweet words, but I know he's skilled at manipulating others' emotions. He borrowed money from me time and again, promising big business ventures but then failing and complaining once more. "You're luckier than me, Connor. You have everything." He often said that, his voice full of envy. My success made Jared even more envious. I realized that through family conversations. My parents often used me as an example. "Learn from your brother, Jared. Connor was independent from a young age, now he's so successful." Each time Jared forced a smile, but his eyes flashed with jealousy. He hated my calmness, hated the reputation I had built in Hollywood, the big parties, million-dollar contracts, praising articles. Jared lived in my shadow, and instead of trying to overcome it, he chose to resent. I once tried to help him, introduce partners, lend capital, even invite him to join film projects. But Jared always refused or did it half-heartedly and gave up. "I'm not you," he said, his voice bitter. Now sitting in the office, all the pieces fit together. Perhaps because of that envy, Jared flirted and had an affair with my newlywed wife to get revenge. Or maybe this pair had been sneaking around even before, planning longer to seize all my assets. I don't have a definite answer. I remember my wedding with Haley. Jared was the best man, grinning widely, patting my shoulder. "Congratulations on your happiness, brother." At that time, did Haley and he exchange strange looks? Or had they met before I proposed? The detective's report shows they met a few months ago, but it could be longer. I imagine them at the coffee shop, whispering about wills, about ways to eliminate me. My heart aches sharply as if torn apart. The truth is clear. The two of them, Haley and Jared, together betrayed me, together calculated every step to seize everything I had built. Not just love, but assets, the company, even my life and my parents. They discussed the final plan about making me disappear. I tremble, my hands clenched into fists. How could they? Haley, whom I loved with all my heart, shared dreams with me. Jared, my brother, whom I once sacrificed for. They turned me into a fool, living in an illusion of happiness while they plotted behind my back. I stand up, pace the room, trying to suppress the anger. No, I won't let emotions control me. I decide I will make both of them pay, not with violence, but with planning, legality, and honor. I will gather more evidence, contact lawyers, and force them to reveal themselves in the light of justice. I will protect my parents, the elderly, still believing Jared is a good son. I will protect Wells Studios, the company I poured sweat and tears into building. Despite the childhood traumas, my parents' strictness making me lonely, Jared's envy making me tired, I still can't let my parents become victims of the child they spoiled. They loved Jared too much, and now he's turning to bite them. I can't let that happen. I close the file, stand up. Stepping in front of the wall mirror, I look at the reflection. A 39-year-old man, hair slightly messy, eyes red from crying. But the eyes are no longer sad, but alert and determined to restore justice to myself. I'm no longer the weak Connor collapsed by betrayal. I am Connor Wells, CEO, survivor of many hardships. I will plan, call Mr. Frank to continue surveillance, prepare legal files, and wait for the opportunity. They think I'm blind. They're wrong. The storm has come, and I will be the one controlling it. After many nights of contemplation, weighing every step, I decided I had to tell my parents everything clearly. They were the most innocent people in this mess, and according to Mr. Frank's report, Jared had started inquiring about their schedules, a dangerous sign. I couldn't let them become victims. My parents lived in a small house on the outskirts of Los Angeles. I drove there on a Sunday afternoon under a clear blue sky with white clouds drifting lazily. The familiar road, lined with old oak trees on both sides, felt endlessly long today, as if leading to an inevitable confrontation. My heart pounded as I turned into the driveway, the Mercedes crunching over the gravel. I parked, took a deep breath, and carried the detective's file hidden in my leather briefcase. My parents were in the backyard. My father, Mr. John Wells, trimming the rose bushes, my mother, Mrs. Gemma, sitting on the swing chair reading a book. Mr. John, a successful entrepreneur who had built an insurance empire from nothing, was now 68 with silver white hair but still a sturdy build. He had sold the business 5 years ago to retire, spending his time on gardening and fishing trips. My mother, Mrs. Gemma, 65, a former teacher, now enjoyed cooking and reading. They saw me and smiled, waving. "Connor, you're here unexpectedly? Stay for dinner with us?" my mother said, her voice warm. I hugged them, trying to keep a smile, but my heart felt heavy. We went inside, sitting in the familiar living room with the old sofa and family photos on the wall, pictures of me and Jared as kids grinning by the pool. I took a deep breath and began to speak. "Mom, Dad, I have something important to tell you." About Haley and Jared. My voice trembled slightly, but I tried to stay calm. I told them from the beginning. Mrs. Mildred's words, the suspicions, the cameras, the detective, and finally the horrifying truth about the plot. They're meeting behind my back, discussing assets, wills. They want to harm me and possibly you both to take everything, I said, my voice lowering, observing their faces. Both were stunned, eyes wide, mouths agape. My father paused with his glass of water in hand, his face paling. Connor, what are you saying? Haley is a good daughter-in-law. Jared is your brother. Why would you think that? He said, his voice doubtful, as if I were telling a wild story. My mother was more heartbroken, her eyes reddening, hand covering her mouth. Son, you're stressed from work. Hollywood has distorted everything for you. Haley loves you so much. Jared is still young. How could they do that? She shook her head, her voice trembling. They began defending Jared as always. Your brother is young. It might just be business collaboration. Jared often asks about shares, but that's family business. You're slandering your own flesh and blood, Connor. Don't let suspicion destroy the family, my father said, his voice stern like when he scolded me in the old days. My mother nodded. Jared has been frail since childhood, you know that. He couldn't harm anyone. And Haley, such an obedient daughter-in-law, always calls to check on us. You've misunderstood. Their words stabbed at my heart like knives. I knew they would react this way. They had always loved Jared more, spoiling him from a young age. I had once been envious, but now it only hurt more. I silently took out the detective's file from my briefcase and placed it in front of them on the coffee table, without saying another word. The thick stack of papers with photos, recordings, and detailed reports. The room's atmosphere suddenly dropped, as if all the air had been sucked out. My father picked up the first photo, Haley and Jared hugging at the coffee shop, his hand trembling, the glass of water nearly falling. Oh God, he whispered, his face ashen. My mother was speechless, just staring at Haley's face in the photo, her eyes wide with horror. She flipped to another page, the recording about the final plan, and her hand shook uncontrollably. The room was silent enough that I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. My father flipped through the entire file, his face pale, hands gripping the edge of the table tightly. This can't be. Jared, my son, he muttered, his voice breaking. My mother began to cry, tears rolling down her cheeks. How could this happen? They've betrayed us. Both gradually realized the truth. The son they trusted the most and the daughter-in-law they cherished had betrayed not only me but them as well. The plot didn't stop at my assets. It targeted their will, perhaps to eliminate them. My father, once a steely entrepreneur, now sat there like a frail old man. I was wrong, Connor. I spoiled him too much, he said, his voice choked. My mother buried her face in her hands and sobbed. My youngest son? How could he? I stood there without blaming them. I knew they needed time to accept it. The truth was too cruel, like a punch to the face. I had thought I would shout in anger, but now I only felt pity for them. My parents had given all their love to Jared, and he repaid them with a dagger. I waited for them to calm down, then calmly outlined the plan. Mom, Dad, we don't have time to hesitate. I'll take you on a long overseas trip, a vacation visiting Europe like you've always dreamed. My purpose is to get you out of harm's way. I'll handle the plane tickets, hotels, everything. In the meantime, I'll deal with things here with lawyers and the police. My father looked up, his eyes red. Are you sure? We're old, traveling so far. But he nodded, knowing there was no other choice. My mother wiped her tears. Son, I'm sorry for doubting you. We'll go. We hugged each other, the atmosphere heavy but filled with determination. In the days that followed, I accelerated the plan. Early in the morning, I booked plane tickets for my parents, a flight to Rome at the end of the week, then transferring to Paris. I called them every day, my voice cheerful, "Mom and Dad, prepare your luggage. I'll take care of everything." The detective continued to closely monitor every move of the two, and what he discovered made my heart race wildly. Recently, they frequently met with strangers in dark parking lots and secluded coffee shops on the outskirts of the city. No longer were these romantic rendezvous, but secret, brief meetings with suspicious-looking individuals, burly men with scarred faces or women dressed discreetly from head to toe. Mr. Frank sent photos, Jared exchanging documents with a guy in a parking lot near the airport, Haley whispering to someone in a small coffee shop in downtown. "They're expanding their network," Mr. Frank wrote in the report. "It seems like they're recruiting people for a big plan." Then a special report arrived, escalating everything. Mr. Frank sent it via encrypted email with the subject, "Urgent Update." In it, he recorded Jared handing a thick envelope to a man with a criminal record for assault, a guy named Rico who had been in prison for beating and threatening. The photos were clear. Jared in a parking lot behind a bar handing over the envelope, the other guy nodding, accompanied by a recording from a hidden microphone. "Wrap up the plan quickly. No traces left." Jared's voice whispered, cold and detached. Rico replied, "Don't worry, I'm a professional." Those words echoed in my head like a death knell. I realized they were about to act. My life was truly in danger. No longer a vague conspiracy, but a specific plan. Perhaps a car accident or a beating. My heart pounded, cold sweat breaking out. I sat still in the office, my hands trembling as I held the phone. How could they? Jared, my brother, hiring someone to harm his own flesh and blood. Does Haley know? I remembered our childhood. Jared frail and sickly, me sharing my food with him, protecting him from bullies. Now he wants to wrap me up. I didn't panic. Instead, a surge of determination to counterattack rose within me. Not with violence, but with a plan to make them reveal themselves. I would set a trap for them, force them to act hastily and gather irrefutable evidence. Then I took the first step, organizing a sudden press conference at Wells Studios. I called the PR team requesting they invite the media urgently. Important announcement about the company's future. The conference took place the next afternoon in the large hall, with flashlights blinking continuously and reporters crowding each other. I stood on the podium, in a neat black suit, my voice calm but resolute. Today I want to announce that I am preparing to finalize my will. I will transfer most of my assets and shares of Wells Studios to a charitable fund for cinema, to support young filmmakers. I'll only keep a small portion for my parents, who are currently vacationing in Europe. Murmurs arose, cameras flashed. I smiled. This is how I give back to life. The conference ended in chaos, with reporters asking relentlessly, "Why so sudden, Mr. Wells?" I replied vaguely, "It's time to think about my legacy." The news spread quickly like wildfire across dry grasslands. The Hollywood press reported it extensively. Wells Studios CEO donates most assets to charity. Society buzzed, my phone rang incessantly. Haley came home that night, her face pale. "What are you doing?" "A will? Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice trembling. I hugged her. "I wanted to surprise you. What are you worried about?" But I saw her eyes avoiding mine. Jared called right after. "Brother, is the rumor true?" "You're crazy," he shouted over the phone. I laughed. "It's true. I've decided." They panicked, immediately increasing their contacts and meetings. Mr. Frank reported. They met urgently at a coffee shop. Recorded. Mr. Frank captured tense conversations. "We have to act sooner than planned. We can't wait anymore. That will is going to ruin everything." Haley's voice was panicked. Jared replied, "Calm down. I've contacted Rico. And the drugs. They're coming soon." Through further surveillance, Mr. Frank discovered they had ordered some kind of drug through an intermediary, a smuggler in the black market. Photos showed Jared receiving a small package in a parking lot, his face tense. "Probably poison," Mr. Frank concluded. "They're planning to poison you." My heart went cold. They were really about to act. I imagined the scene. Poison slipped into wine or food. My life was hanging by a thread. I sat motionless in my office, the laptop screen illuminating my face in the darkness of the Los Angeles night. The distant sounds of traffic echoed through the window, but they were just white noise, unable to drown out the pounding of my heart in my ears. Cyanide or some colorless, odorless poison. Mr. Frank wasn't sure, but enough to kill without leaving clear traces. I leaned back in my chair, my hands clenched into fists so tightly they turned white. How could they? Haley, the woman I once held every night, now plotting to pour poison into my wine glass. Jared, my own brother, who used to cry loudly when bullied at school, now hiring strangers to wrap up his sibling. I remembered family evenings with our parents in the middle, Jared and I laughing and joking. Now it all seemed like an illusion. The initial suspicion from Mrs. Mildred's words had now become a horrifying reality, a dark conspiracy tightening around me. I couldn't sleep that night, lying next to Haley as if beside an enemy. She slept soundly, her breathing steady, but every time she stirred, I startled, wondering if she was dreaming about the plan. The next morning, I got up early, brewed strong black coffee, and called my lawyer. "Get ready. They're about to make their move." My voice was ice cold, no longer trembling. He agreed, his tone worried. "Connor, you should report to the police right away." I replied, "I will, but I need the final evidence. I'll set a trap for them." I contacted a police officer introduced by the lawyer, one who specialized in economic crimes and murder conspiracies. "I have evidence, but I need to catch them in the act," I said over an encrypted phone. He listened carefully, then agreed to set up a plan. "We'll wait for your signal." The following days passed in extreme tension. I maintained a normal appearance, going to work at Wells Studios, attending meetings about the new film project, even inviting Haley to a romantic dinner. "I love you," I said, looking into her eyes, but only to observe her reaction. She smiled, but it was forced, her eyes avoiding mine. Jared called a few times, his voice pretending to be friendly. "Brother, let's meet and talk." "I'm worried about you," I politely declined. "I'm busy, little bro." About to sign the will, I knew those words cut into his heart like a knife. Mr. Frank continued reporting. They met every day, their panic escalating. Photos showed Jared arguing with that guy Rico in a parking lot. "Hurry up! Where's the drug?" The other growled. "I'm on it." I watched them over and over, feeling the suspense like being in the climax of a film I produced, but this time, my life was at stake. Then one day my phone buzzed, a message from Jared. "Brother, I'm organizing an intimate party at my place tonight. Just family, inviting you and sister-in-law to celebrate Mom and Dad's trip." I read it, my heart racing. This was it, the decisive moment. Jared suddenly organizing a party at his own house, a small home on the outskirts where he lived alone after divorcing his ex-wife. I knew this wasn't a celebration, but a trap. They planned to make their move there in a secluded place, easy to control. I imagined a special bottle of wine, poison slipped in, then an accident happens. I immediately called Mr. Frank. "Monitor closely. I'll go." Then informed the lawyer and police. "Tonight at Jared's house. Prepare the team." They agreed, quickly setting up the plan. Police would wait outside. The lawyer would come along to witness. Before leaving, I activated remote audio and video recording devices, the small mics and cameras I had pre-installed in my jacket pocket and car, connected to my phone and streaming directly to the police. My hands trembled slightly as I checked the battery, but my determination burned fiercely. That afternoon, I came home early. Haley was getting ready. "Jared's party will be fun, honey. It's been a while since our family gathered," she said, her voice trying to sound cheerful, but I saw her hands shaking as she applied makeup. I hugged her from behind. "Yeah, it'll be fun." But inside my heart ached. This might be the last time I held her as a wife. We drove to Jared's house, the suburban road growing dark, headlights illuminating the roadside bushes. My heart pounded, the anticipation like my first time in front of the camera. I reminded myself, stay calm. Let them reveal themselves. The party unfolded in a flashy but artificial atmosphere. Jared's house was decorated with lanterns, the dining table set with seafood and expensive wine. There were a few guests, his friends from the insurance industry, but mainly family, me, Haley, and Jared. Jared acted overly friendly, patting my shoulder. Brother, glad you're here. Drink up. Today's a happy day. Haley was polite but tense beneath the surface. She smiled a lot, but her eyes darted around, her hand gripping the wine glass tightly. The atmosphere was heavy, even with light music playing from the speakers. We sat around the table, chatting idly about work, about our parents. Mom and Dad are in Italy. Are they well? Jared asked, his voice friendly, but his eyes flashed. I replied calmly, yeah, on vacation for a few days. They'll be back soon. They're having a great time. Jared smiled faintly, saying nothing, but I saw him exchange a glance with Haley, a quick, meaningful look. After that, the party heated up. Haley and Jared kept pouring wine for me, praising me in front of the guests. Connor is an amazing brother, a successful CEO, Jared shouted, raising his glass. Haley laughed. Darling, drink up. Today's special. They filled my glass repeatedly, their voices sweet, but I only sipped, pretending to get drunk. Jared even brought out a special bottle of wine, a vintage red French label, which he boasted. I've been saving this for a long time, want to taste it with you. Cheers to my brother's success. The bottle gleamed under the lights and he poured for me first. I held the glass, sniffed it, a strange scent, but I didn't drink right away. As I raised the glass to prepare to drink, Haley and Jared's eyes showed clear anxiety. They communicated with gestures. Haley bit her lip. Jared clenched his hand under the table, their eyes fixed on my glass as if waiting. Right at that moment, as I brought the glass to my lips, the front door burst open. Police and the lawyer stormed into the living room, moving quickly and professionally like an action movie scene. Los Angeles Police. Nobody move. The lead officer's voice boomed, guns at the ready, the team surrounding the dining table. The guests panicked, screaming, but the police quickly took control. Haley froze, her wine glass shattering on the floor, her face as white as paper. Jared paled, jumping up. What's going on? This is my house. But his voice trembled, his eyes wild. On the scene, through quick testing, the authorities detected poisonous components in Jared's wine bottle, cyanide, just as Mr. Frank had predicted. A specialist took a sample from my glass, testing it on site with portable equipment. Confirmed toxin. Dosage enough to kill. The officer read the arrest warrant. Jared Wells and Haley Stone, you are under arrest for suspected conspiracy to poison and seize assets. Haley and Jared were terrified, panicking. Haley sobbed, "It's not true!" "Connor, you've misunderstood." Jared shouted, "What are you doing?" "This is a setup." But the police handcuffed them and led them to the car. My lawyer observed, taking notes and confirming the chain of evidence on site. From the meeting recordings, photos of buying the drug, to the poison test. Reporters' cameras flashed relentlessly outside the door. Someone had leaked the news and journalists swarmed like bees from a hive. Images of Haley and Jared being led away, heads bowed, handcuffs gleaming under the flashes, immediately spread online. Wells family scandal. Plot to kill CEO, the headlines would read. I stood silently amid the chaos, witnessing justice being served without a word of celebration. No victorious smile, just emptiness. Haley turned her head to look at me one last time, eyes full of tears. "Connor." But I turned away, not responding. Jared growled something, but the police pushed him into the car. I drove home alone, the suburban road pitch black, the night wind whistling through the open window. The headlights swept across the roadside bushes, casting shifting shadows like ghosts from the past. I didn't feel relieved, no sense of victory as I had imagined. Instead, there was a vast emptiness in my chest, as if a part of my soul had been torn apart. Haley. The woman who had once been everything to me, now handcuffed, sobbing and begging. Jared, my own brother, the little boy I had once protected, now being led away like a criminal. I pulled over to the side of the road, turned off the engine, and sat in silence in the darkness. Tears rolled down my cheeks, not out of pity for them, but for my own pain. I remembered our wedding night, Haley in her white dress, Jared patting my shoulder. Be happy, brother. Now it was all ashes. I called my parents in Europe, my voice choked. It's over. They've been arrested. My mother cried over the phone. Oh God, my Jared. My father was silent for a long time, then said, Son, you're very strong. I hung up, took a deep breath, and continued driving home. The penthouse now felt vast and empty, cold, without Haley's warmth. The days that followed passed in a chaos of investigations and media frenzy. Reporters surrounded the building, my phone buzzing incessantly with calls from the press. I refused interviews, focusing only on work at Wells Studios, reviewing scripts, attending meetings as if that was the only way to forget. But at night I lay awake, haunted by images of the party, the special bottle of wine, their anxious eyes as I raised the glass. I had come so close to death, just seconds away. Mr. Frank called. They're in custody, no bail. The evidence is too solid. I nodded but felt no joy. My parents called daily from Italy, their voices worried. How are you eating? Don't let this bring you down. I reassured them, but deep down I was crumbling. I lost weight, my eyes dark with circles, and at the studio my assistant asked, Are you okay? I forced a smile. I'm fine. After more than 3 months of detention and investigation, the case was brought to trial at the Los Angeles County Courthouse. It was a large building with classical architecture, white stone columns situated in the bustling city center. The case attracted massive attention from the media and entertainment industry. The Hollywood press called it the scandal of the century, with sensational headlines like, From Film Set to Prison, the dark plot of the Wells family. Reporters camped outside the courthouse doors from early morning, cameras ready, and curious crowds gathered. I arrived early, driving in when the sky was still dim, parking in the underground garage to avoid the lenses. My face was calm, my black suit impeccable, but my eyes carried a deep disappointment, as if the whole world had collapsed beneath my feet. I entered the courtroom, the atmosphere cold with polished wooden benches and the smell of old documents. My parents had returned from Europe, sitting in the back row of witnesses, holding hands tightly, silently following every word from the prosecutor. My mother looked noticeably thinner, her eyes red from nights crying over Jared. My father, once a steely entrepreneur, now sat there with slumped shoulders as if he had aged a decade. I sat in the front row next to my lawyer, my heart beating steadily but heavily. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, people from the entertainment industry, even a few familiar actors from my films. The tension was palpable, like a legal drama I had once produced, but this time I was the main character. The prosecutor began presenting, his voice strong. The defendants Haley Stone and Jared Wells conspired to murder the plaintiff Connor Wells to seize his assets. They revealed the evidence one by one. Photos from Mr. Frank, recordings of meetings, the poison test in the wine bottle. Each piece of evidence was like a knife stab, forcing me to breathe deeply to stay calm. Haley and Jared were escorted to the court, their appearances so haggard that I almost didn't recognize them. Haley, once a beautiful actress with glossy hair, now had disheveled locks, a gaunt face, wearing a gray prison uniform. She bowed her head to avoid the reporter's lenses in the hallway, entering the room in handcuffs, her eyes red but tearless. Jared was the same, emaciated with unkempt beard, his once charming figure now hunched like an old man's. They sat in the defendant's seats, not looking at each other, not looking at me. Both remained silent as the evidence was presented one after another. No justifications, no objections, just bowed heads listening to the prosecutor list. Conspiracy to poison, asset seizure, unauthorized access to bank data. The defense lawyer tried. The defendants were influenced by financial stress. But the evidence was too clear. I sat there looking at them with a heart aching like it was being cut. Haley had once whispered her love to me every night. Jared had once called me the best brother. Now they were defendants, and I was the victim. The trial lasted 4 days, each day like a drawn-out chapter in a film. On the first day, the prosecutor presented physical evidence: the wine bottle, cyanide toxin, recordings of the wrap-up plan. The courtroom was deathly silent, only the rustle of papers and discreet camera flashes. On the second day, witnesses took the stand. Mr. Frank recounted the surveillance. Mrs. Mildred confirmed the stranger coming in and out of the house. I took the witness stand, my voice calm but slightly trembling. I never suspected my wife and brother until the evidence forced me to believe. Reporters scribbled furiously, and I saw my mother wiping tears in the back row. On the third day, the defense lawyer tried to turn it around. No intent to kill, just joking. But the prosecutor refuted with evidence of purchasing the poison. Jared and Haley said nothing, just bowed their heads. On the fourth day, the final arguments, tension at its peak. I sat there, hands clenched, reminiscing about childhood. Little Jared, me teaching him to swim. Now he wanted to kill me out of envy. After 4 days of trial, the court delivered the verdict. The judge, an elderly man with a stern voice, read the sentence. Defendant Haley Stone, 10 years in prison, forfeiture of all inheritance rights, and ordered to pay civil damages of $5 million. Haley collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably, hands covering her face. Defendant Jared Wells, 15 years in prison as the mastermind, additionally charged with conspiracy to murder and unauthorized data access for asset seizure. Jared stood still, his face ashen, no reaction. When the verdict was announced, the courtroom fell silent as a grave, only whispers and camera flashes. My father was stunned, sitting motionless, eyes wide with horror. My mother broke down, wailing heartbreakingly for her lost youngest son. Jared, my boy. She buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. I gently stood up, walked over, patted and comforted her. Mom, it's over. We'll get through this. My father held my hand, his voice choked. Son, I'm proud of you. We hugged each other in the courtroom, tears streaming down. Outside the courthouse, the media reported in unison like a storm. Reporters surrounded us as we exited, microphones thrust forward. Mr. Wells, how do you feel? I didn't respond, only shielding my parents from the crowd. The news spread everywhere, CNN, TMZ, all over. Wells' case concludes, wife and brother receive heavy sentences. The Wells family story became a reminder of greed, betrayal, and the price of fame. The press analyzed, from glamorous film sets to prison, a lesson in trust. I read it with a heavy heart. At home, I sat alone looking through old photos, a happy family. Now shattered. I called my parents. Are you okay? My mother cried. I miss Jared. I comforted her. I know, but we have to accept it. The days after the trial passed like a hazy dream, full of repeating images in my mind. I woke up each morning with a sense of emptiness. The penthouse, once a warm home, now just a cold space full of painful memories. Haley's perfume still lingered faintly on the pillows, Jared's grinning photos on the bookshelf like cruel reminders. I couldn't stay in Los Angeles anymore. This city, with its glaring neon lights and bustling streets, now only evoked memories of betrayal. After the trial, I decided to leave, spending time traveling Europe with my parents to forget the chaotic months. We need time to heal, I said to my parents over the phone, my voice trying to stay steady. They agreed, though my mother still cried whenever Jared was mentioned. We flew to Italy first, where my parents had vacationed before, then wandered to France and Switzerland, peaceful places with mountains and emerald lakes. That trip was like a slow, healing remedy. We stayed in Rome first, renting a small apartment near the Colosseum, where in the mornings I got up early to brew strong Italian coffee for my parents. My father, once a busy entrepreneur, now enjoyed sitting by the window watching people pass by, telling stories of his startup days. Son, life is like a movie with climaxes and endings, he said, his voice warm but tinged with sadness. My mother often cried quietly, holding an old photo of Jared. I was wrong. I spoiled him too much. I hugged her, comforting, Mom, we still have each other. We strolled through the Vatican, visited museums, ate gelato under the golden sun. In Paris, we walked along the Seine, my parents holding hands like in their youth. I took photos of them laughing and joking, but inside my heart still felt heavy. Late at night, when my parents slept, I sat on the balcony watching the Eiffel Tower sparkle and thought about Haley. Her fake smiles, her deceitful whispers. Betrayal was like a scar, aching every time it was touched. The trip lasted 2 months, enough for us to breathe, to gradually forget the chaotic months in Los Angeles. We talked more than ever about childhood, mistakes, the future. My father recounted his strict times with me. I wanted you to be strong, but perhaps I was too harsh. I shook my head. Thanks to that, I survived this. My mother apologized for favoring Jared. I loved both of you, but Jared was frail. I hugged her. I understand, Mom. Those conversations blurred some of the pain, helping us bond more. When we returned to America, I felt lighter, though the wound remained. I decided to sell the Penthouse, the place full of bad memories where Mrs. Mildred had once warned me. Sell it, son. Start anew, my mother advised. I sold it quickly for a high price, but money meant nothing now. I moved to live in Santa Barbara, a small house by the sea where mornings brought only crashing waves and sea breezes instead of rushed meetings or glaring camera lights. That new house was simple, with a backyard overlooking the ocean, worn wooden floors, and a cozy little kitchen. I moved in on a drizzly afternoon, bringing a few boxes, books, notebooks, and family photos without Haley or Jared. On the first morning there, I got up early, brewed coffee, and sat on the porch listening to the waves murmur. No car horns, no phones ringing incessantly. Just the salty sea wind blowing through my hair, carrying the scent of salt and freedom. I jogged along the beach, feet touching wet sand, and for the first time in months I felt like I could breathe. Santa Barbara was peaceful, with small streets, local coffee shops, and friendly people. I met my neighbors, an elderly couple who loved telling sea stories, and gradually integrated. No longer CEO Connor Wells, just Connor, the man rediscovering himself. Wells Studios continued to thrive, but I stepped back from the executive role. I handed it over to the reliable team, those who had been with me from the beginning. I need a break, I said in the final meeting, my voice calm. They understood, applauding in congratulations, but I knew they were worried. Wells Studios still produced blockbuster films with increasing revenue, but I chose to become an independent producer, focusing on films with humanistic meaning. No more action blockbusters, but stories about trust, betrayal, and forgiveness, like Shadows of Trust, the film I scripted based on my own experiences. Working from home, with my laptop by the window overlooking the sea, I found true joy. Small filming sessions with a close-knit crew, no revenue pressure. I understood that sometimes loss is the way to rediscover oneself. The betrayal didn't kill me. It only taught me how to judge people, how to place trust correctly. Before, I trusted blindly. Now I'm more cautious, but I haven't lost hope. I understand that sometimes loss is the way to rediscover oneself. Haley and Jared's betrayal didn't kill me. It only taught me how to judge people, how to place trust correctly. Before, I blindly trusted in love and blood ties, nearly losing my life. Now I'm more cautious, observing gestures closely, listening deeply to words, but without losing the ability to love. I learned that trust must be built on actions, not empty promises. Connor lives slower now, spending time with his parents, taking them for beach walks every weekend, cooking their favorite meals, listening to them reminisce about the old days. Son, you're our support, my father says, eyes sparkling. My mother hugs me. I'm proud of you. I dedicate time to community projects, funding a film charity for poor children, volunteering to teach filmmaking at local centers, sharing lessons. Trust, but be wise. Betrayal can happen, but don't let it define you. And for myself, yoga at dawn, reading philosophy books on the porch, learning guitar to casually sing sad ballads. In my notebook, I wrote, I once lost everything, love, trust, honor, but what remained was self-respect. And it's enough for me to start over. Those lines are like a daily reminder written in black ink on white paper in the old leather notebook I brought from Europe. I write about the journey, from the first crack of suspicion in the penthouse hallway, through nights monitoring cameras to the painful trial, and now to a peaceful life by the sea. The notebook is filled with densely packed pages, childhood memories with Jared, the pain of discovering the plot, lessons from loss. I read it again every evening under the warm light and smile sadly. Self-respect, the thing no one can steal, saved me from the abyss. It helped me stand up, rebuild from the ashes. The final message I want to share from my own experience: betrayers may steal assets, but they cannot steal character. Honest people, though hurt, will eventually find their own light again. Remember that life is full of painful surprises, but don't let them extinguish the fire within. Learn to judge people, observe actions more than words, place trust in those who deserve it. And if betrayed, see it as a lesson, not an end. Forgive if you can, but don't forget to protect yourself. Live slower, cherish what truly matters. Sincere family, loyal friends, and yourself. That light, peace by the sea, parents' smiles, joy from meaningful work will come if you persevere.